Welcome to CKVR's Reach for the Top. Tonight's competing teams are Bramalea Secondary from Bramalea and Orangeville District Secondary from Orangeville. And to get things underway, please welcome the person with all the questions and answers, Gail Curry.
Good evening and welcome to this edition of Reach for the Top. Let's take a minute to meet the students and their staff advisors. First, from Bramalea Secondary School, please welcome Dave Foster, Tom Iveson, Scott Logan, and Jim Owie, and their staff advisor, Peter Burns. Tonight, they'll meet Orangeville District Secondary School. Team members are Andrea Varley, Don Aitchison, Mike English, and Mark Murray, and their staff advisor, Ina Healy. And as always, it's a pleasure to introduce our official adjudicator, the judge for each of our shows here at CKVR, Jerry Allaby. Jerry's a faculty member at Georgian College in Barrie.
Thank you, Gail.
Well, Jerry, it's hard to believe we're getting ready for our Flight 1 quarterfinals.
Well, we've had many good teams in Flight 1, and we have two excellent teams from our southern broadcast area tonight, and I expect a good game. Only one will go on, though.
That's right. Well, let's get started. I wish the students good luck, and we'll start off with a series of snappers. What body of water separates Saudi Arabia from Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt? Mark.
Suez Canal.
Bramalea. Jim.
Red Sea.
It was Egypt. What was the name of what is now...
Red Sea.
Red Sea. Oh, right. What was the name of what is now the province of Quebec before the Act of Union was passed in 1841?
Lower Canada.
You're right. In architecture, what is the name for a decorative ornament resembling a rose having a generally circular combination of parts? That was rosette. Which province has the dogwood as its floral emblem? Andrea.
British Columbia?
You're right, Andrea. What do you call the body of water between an offshore bar and the mainland? Andrea.
Strait?
Bramalea. Dave.
A bay?
That was lagoon. We'll be back with more questions. Please stay with us.
Hi, I'm Jane Stafford. This week on Good Company, we'll offer help for dissatisfied computer owners. We'll talk with the president of the International Computer Orphanage. We have a very special interview this week with actress Christy McNichol, and you can learn how people overcome their fear of water. We'll have these features and more just for you.
At GE, the spark sizzles with innovation. The color glows with versatility. The new Spacemaker 2 compact microwave oven, now at Kent TV Furniture and Appliances or Mervyn Homes Appliances. The Spacemaker 2, ideal for all kitchens. Save counter space, hang it up, small, lightweight, and can easily handle a 9x13 baking dish. The Spacemaker 2, now at Kent TV Furniture and Appliances in Gravenhurst and Aurelia or Mervyn Homes Appliances in Shelburne. GE, innovation and versatility working for you.
GE, we bring good things to life.
The strange, the bizarre, the unexpected. These are the kinds of subjects a man named Robert L. Ripley challenged us to...
Believe it or not.
Thursday nights at 6, enter the world of the unexplained on Ripley's Believe It or Not.
It's called The Tiger Balm Garden, and it's the creation of a wealthy eccentric, Aboon Ha.
3 is Ripley's Believe It or Not, Thursday nights at 6 on CKVR-TV.
Welcome back. Let's go on with more questions. We'll begin with a history question. It happened 89 years ago on November the 5th, 1895. A discovery was made that revolutionized medicine. This led to the discovery of radioactivity and to what was the beginning of modern physics. What was the discovery, Dave?
Radium?
Not correct. Orangeville. Andrea.
Radiation?
That was X-rays. And who was the German scientist who was responsible for the find, Don?
Roentgen?
You're right. At the time of his remarkable discovery, Roentgen was experimenting with rays of another kind. What were they called? Don.
Alpha rays?
Not correct, Bramalea. Jim. Cathode rays. As a result of his work, Dr. Roentgen was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1901. What was unique about his award? It was the first Nobel Prize in that field, physics. Let's try an open question for 40 points. It's on villains. It's open to any member of either team. Please score 10 points for each correct answer. From the description I give you, identify the following villains. He sold a friend for 30 pieces of silver. Don.
Judas Iscariot.
You're right. Having presided over the bloody assizes of 1685, this English judge became known as the hanging judge. Oh, that was George Jeffreys. I had it right the first time. This fictional villain ran a finishing school for little hoods, pickpockets, and artful dodgers. Don.
Bacon.
You're right. Nicknamed Scarface, he controlled the Chicago underworld in the 20s. Don.
Al Pacino.
You're not right. Emily.
Al Capone?
You're right. This is a 15-point special question. It's open to any member of either team, and you'll score 15 points for the correct answer. So please watch your monitor and listen for the question. A North American bird, it loves to be near streams, ponds, and fields. Its distinctive cry gave it its name. The name begins with the 11th letter of the alphabet.
Kingfisher?
Bramley? That was the killdeer. Here's a team question for 35 points. In this two-part question, whichever team is first to answer the 5-point scrambler will then go on to answer the remaining 10-point questions in part 2. Scramble for 5 points. What twosome rose to stardom in the late 60s with the songs Bridge Over Troubled Water and Mrs. Robinson? Dawn.
Simon and Garfunkel.
You're right. The next questions go to Orangeville, and they all deal with popular music. Name the singer and the song of the best-selling single of all time. It's a seasonal hit. Dawn?
Bing Crosby, White Christmas.
You're right again. What rock group rose from relative obscurity to international stardom with the 1977 hit album Rumors? Need an answer here. That was Fleetwood Mac. Johnny Cash made famous a rather unusual and embarrassing boy's name. What was it? Andrea.
Boy named Sue?
That's right. For 30 points, this is a question on spelling. It's open to any member of either team, and you'll score 10 points for each correct answer. Spell these words beginning with CH that are connected to the church. The first emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. Spell Charlemagne. Tom.
C-H-A-R-L-E-M-A-G-N-E.
That's right. The second of the 9 orders of angels. Spell cherubim. Dawn.
C-H-E-R-U-B-E-M.
Not correct, Bramley. Tom.
C-H-E-R-U-B-U-M.
Not correct. It was I-M. It's the Old Testament book. Spell Chronicles. Jim.
C-H-R-O-N-I-C-L-E-S.
That's right. Open question for 40 points. It's an audio question on choral music. Listen to the following selections of choral music and wait for the questions in each case. First piece, please. This is one of more than 250 church cantatas composed by what organ virtuoso? Ton.
Haley Willen.
Not correct, Bramley. That's Bach, and that was Zion Hears the Watchman's Voices. Next piece, please. What kind of musical form is Handel's Messiah? Jim.
Oratorio.
You're right. Next piece, please. The Latin of Vivaldi's Gloria in Excelsis Deo has what English translation? Mark.
Glory be to God in high.
You're right. Last piece, please. Which one of Beethoven's symphonies? Jim.
The Choral Symphony, 9.
You're right. This 40-point open question is a video question on religious themes. Watch your monitors and listen for the following questions. First, we have Jan van Eyck's painting of Mary or Maria, the mother of Jesus, and it's one of hundreds of that popular theme. In Italian, she is known by what single word, also beginning Mark?
Madonna.
You're right. Next. William Blake painted an image of these biblical ladies. Some were wise, some foolish. They were all Dawn.
Virgins.
You're right. Next. Salvador Dali painted this biblical scene. What event is portrayed? Mark.
The Last Supper.
You're right. And last, Marc Chagall's stained glass of the tribe of Simeon decorates a synagogue in what Middle Eastern city? Dawn.
Jerusalem.
You're right. Good work. Open question for 40 points on baseball. Considered by many to be the most exciting player in baseball history, this Hall of Famer was the second player in Major League history to hit more than 600 home runs. His name, Dave.
Babe Ruth.
Not correct, Orangeville? Dawn.
Hank Aaron.
That was Willie Mays. What position did Mays play for most of his career? Tom.
Second base.
Not correct, Orangeville?
Outfield.
Not correct, that was center field. Maybe we'll take a pass on these questions. They don't seem to be doing too well on them. Let's try some snappers. What's meant in Ottawa by the Green Chamber? That was the House of Commons. Name the large lake on the borders of Ontario, Manitoba, and Minnesota. Scott.
Superior.
Orangeville? Mike.
Lake Huron.
That was Lake of the Woods. Who led the Red River and Northwest Rebellion? Tom.
Riel.
You're right. Who was the first English explorer to set foot on Canada's Pacific coast? Mark.
Cabot. Oh.
Bramalea. Tom.
Vancouver.
That was Cook. Where were the British Empire Games of 1930 held? Mark.
Hamilton.
You're right. We'll take a break and be back. Please stay with us.
More than 2 million Canadians have insulated their homes with fiberglass pink. Here's what one particular couple did with the money they saved.
We saved enough to buy 252 beautiful pink flamingos.
262
I stand corrected. Notice that all of their beaks are a beautiful hue of yellow.
What you do with the money you save is your business. Our business is making sure you do save money. Fiberglass pink home insulation. Do it for the money you save.
Did you hear the great news? There's a new store in town. Toys R Us is open, everyone is coming down. Hey there, Toys R Us kids. Listen up, Mom and Dad. You're gonna have the biggest choice of toys you've ever had. There's bikes and trains and video games, and the price is nice and low. So
every Toys R Us kid is heading on down to the brand new Toys R Us in town.
Open now in Brampton, Hamilton, Toronto, and London.
Test to mobile.
Total News, a team that works for you. Total News, 7 days a week on CKVR-TV.
As always, it's a pleasure to have Wilfrid Laurier University join us to bring you Reach for the Top. Again, for the 11th season, they'll be awarding $950 scholarships to the 4 members of the team that goes on to win the regional championships. For more on Wilfrid Laurier, here's Bob McIntyre.
Canada's fast becoming a country with great opportunities, but only for those who've prepared for it. For high school students who want to make the most of their future, there is one piece of advice that no one can dispute. Prepare for the future. And for many, that should mean university. At Wilfrid Laurier University in Waterloo, we offer degree courses in a variety of areas: business, science, and the arts, for those who can meet our entrance requirements. So get that competitive edge, a university degree from Laurier.
The winners from this area will then take part in the provincial playoffs. The provincial winners will win an all-expense-paid trip to the national finals. Now, just before we get back to our game, let's check our scores with the judge.
Well, it's still anybody's game, Gail. Orangeville has 135 points, Bramalea 70.
Well, let's have more questions and see what happens from here, Jerry. Let's try an open question for 40 points, students. It's a video question on famous couples in art. Watch your monitors and listen for the following questions. James Van Eyck painted this couple over 500 years ago. Their famous Italian surname was... That was Arnolfini. Next, please. Nicolas Poussin's painting of the mythological Aphrodite has paired her with what god of the sea? Tom.
Poseidon.
You're right. Next, please. Jan Vermeer has painted a gentleman and his lady who is playing what medieval musical instrument? Mark.
Harpsichord.
You're right. And finally, Grant. Don.
American Gothic.
You're right. Let's try an assigned question for 80 points. Now remember, this is a competition between each team player and his opposite number on the other team. Initials are a major part of some people's names. What do the initials in the following names stand for? First, for Dave, the English statesman and Prime Minister William S. Churchill. Winston S. Churchill, correction. Over to Andrea for 5 points.
Stanley?
Not correct. That was Spencer. Andrea, this is yours for 10 points. The winner of the 1957 Nobel Peace Prize, Lester B. Pearson.
Brian?
Not correct. Dave for 5.
Bill.
That was Bowles. Let's try Tom for 10 points. Tom, the Canadian Prime Minister, John G. Diefenbaker.
Gerald?
Not correct. Over to Don for 5. You don't know Don, it's George. Don, this is yours for 10. The creator of The Great Gatsby, F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Franklin.
Not correct. Tom, do you want to try for 5?
Fred?
That was Francis. Okay, let's try Scott, the President of the United States connected with Watergate, Richard M. Nixon.
Milhouse.
You're right for 10 points. Mike, this is yours for 10. The English novelist who wrote Sons and Lovers, D.H. Lawrence. For 5 points to Scott. That was David Hubert. And finally, Jim, for 10 points, the entrepreneur connected with the circus, P.T. Barnum.
Philip Tiberius.
Good guess, but not correct. Mark, for 5. That was Phineas Taylor. And Mark, you've got a 10-pointer coming up. The spokesman for political conservatism in the United States, William F. Buckley.
Franklin.
No, Jim?
Francis.
That was Frank, actually, that we were looking for. This next question is a 15-point special question. It's open. Please watch your monitor and listen for the question. This painting is of model Jane Averill and is by an artist whose style should be familiar. Who was the French artist who held the brush? Mark.
Lautrec.
You're right. Here's an open question for 40 points. It's on current events. August 21st, 1983, Philippine opposition leader Benigno Aquino Jr. was assassinated as he stepped off a plane at Manila Airport. Aquino was the leader of what party? That was the Liberal Party. The abortion question was big news throughout 1983. What is the name of the strong anti-abortion crusader from Winnipeg, a former Manitoba cabinet minister whose nickname is Holy Joe? We don't have any takers on that one either. That was Joseph Borowski. September 1st, 1983, Korean Airlines Flight 007 was shot down by the Soviets. The plane had veered off course, entering Soviet airspace over what peninsula? Dave.
Sakhalin Island.
Orangeville? Mike.
Kamchatka.
That's right. April 22nd, 1983, the West German photo weekly Stern published a story billed as the journalistic scoop of the post-World War.
Hitler's Diaries.
You're right. On to another open question for 40 points. Sorry, for 30 points, this time on famous prisons. What's the name of the prison in Belfast, Ireland, where Bobby Sands and other IRA members staged...
H Block?
Not correct. Staged a hunger strike in 1981. That was Maze Prison. What was the name of the former French penal colony located off the coast of French Guiana? Mark.
Devil's Island?
You're right. Who was the Birdman of Alcatraz? Mike.
Okay.
Okay, Bramalea. That was Robert E. Stroud. This next question is a who am I question. It's worth 40 points. It's open to any member of either team, and there are 4 10-point clues. The value of the question diminishes with each clue given. I am an English artist who also loves poetry. I was so shaken when my wife killed herself. Mark.
Blake?
Not correct. That I buried my complete manuscript of poems with her. Bramalea, do you want to take a crack at this?
Longfellow?
Not correct. For 30 points, 7 years later, I had second thoughts and had the coffin exhumed so I could reclaim my treasured poems. Who am I? Mark.
Browning?
Not correct. Bramalea? Tom.
Wordsworth?
Not correct. For 20 points, I was born of Italian parents in London in 1828. Let's try a 10-point clue then. During my lifetime and with an unmistakably Italian surname, I never once set foot in my parents' native land. Who am I? We were looking for Rossetti. Open question for 40 points on chemistry. Identify the following hydrocarbons from their formula. CH4. Jim, you're right. C3H8. That was propane. C2H2. Jim.
Ethane.
Orangeville.
Ethene.
That was acetylene. And C4H10. Andrea.
Octane.
Bramalea. We were looking for butane. Here's a team question for 45 points. Scramble for 5 points. Roman legions carried standards with the inscribed initials SPQR. What did these initials stand for? That we were looking for Senatus Populusque Romanus, or the Senate and the people of Rome. Shall we toss this question, Judge? Let's go on to some snappers. Which British novelist wrote the 1970 novel, The French Lieutenant's Woman? John Fowles. What is the common anglicized name for the Mediterranean region called Côte d'Azur? Scott.
French Riviera.
You're right. Which European war was concluded by the Peace of Westphalia in 1648? Looking for the 30 Years' War. In zoology, what small burrowing crab is given a musical name because of its one greatly enlarged claw? That was fiddler crab. In the Bible, who was the grandfather of Noah, who lived to the ripe old age of 969?
Ursula?
You're right. Another open question for 40 points, this time on opera singers. Which Spanish tenor, well known to operatic and television audience, released a duet album with Andrea?
Placido Domingo?
You're right. Born and raised in Toronto, which petite soprano of Greek parentage went on to win international acclaim for her dramatic as well as her singing ability? That was Teresa Stratus. Edward Johnson, a versatile tenor who became the manager of the New York Metropolitan, was a native of what country? That was Canada. We've got a lot of blank faces up there. What popular Greek soprano of the 1940s and 50s raised much controversy because of her dramatic, fiery temperament? And we were looking for Maria Callas. Here's an open question for 40 points on provinces. Name the provinces in which the following northern towns are located. First, Telegraph Creek, Hazelton, and Fort St. John. Tom.
Alberta.
Not correct. Andrea?
Saskatchewan?
That was British Columbia we were looking for. Mattagami, Fort Rupert, and Chibougamau. Jim.
Columbia.
Orangeville. Mike.
Alberta.
That was Quebec we were looking for. Favorable Lake, Smoky Falls, and South Porcupine. Dawn.
Saskatchewan.
Bramalea. Tom.
Alberta.
Ontario, our own province. Ile à la Crosse, Stony Rapids, and El Dorado. Tom.
Manitoba.
Orangeville.
Ontario.
That was Saskatchewan. There's our 2-minute sounder, so we'll go on to snappers. Name the Indian chief who fought on the Anglo-Canadian side in the war.
Chief
Mark.
Joseph Brant.
In the War of 1812. Tom.
Tecumseh.
You're right. Who was the premier of Quebec during most of the 1930s, 40s, and 50s? Mark.
Duplessis.
You're right. What is the square root of 289? We're looking for 17. What war should you associate with the Battle of Lexington? Mark.
American Revolutionary.
You're right. In what year did Canada get a distinctive flag of her own? Mark.
1965.
You're right. Who wrote the novel Survival? That was Margaret Atwood. Who was the Prime Minister of Canada when the stock markets crashed in 1929? Mackenzie King. Name the Toronto Argonaut receiver who broke 2 records in the 1983 season for most passes. Andrea.
Terry Greer.
You're right. Which Russian dancer defected to the West in 19...
Barishkinov.
Not right.
Nureyev?
You're right. What type of fungus is used in bread making? Mark.
Move.
Rameli, Tom.
Yeast.
You're right. The city of Baton Rouge is the capital city of which American...
Louisiana.
Tom.
Louisiana.
Which nickname was commonly applied to the first Tsar of Russia, Ivan IV? Tom.
Terrible.
You're right. What's the name of the clear part of the eyeball in front of the pupil? Andrea.
Iris?
Rameli, Jim.
Cornea.
You're right. In Roman numerals, what does the letter C stand for? Dave.
100.
You're right. Name the NHL hockey team Phil Esposito played on when he...
New York Rangers.
Jim.
Boston Bruins.
You're right, Jim. The white oceanic bird of the southern Atlantic regions whose large wings enabled it to stay afloat. Andrea.
Albatross?
You're right. What is the main food of the aardvark? Scott.
Insects.
You're right. In which Canadian city is our national war monument? Mark.
Ottawa.
Correct. Well, that's it. We'll go and check our scores and we'll be back. Please stay with us.
Are your office employees bored? Tense? Then these are probably typical sounds of their environment. Feel that monotony, tension? Now, a Muzak environment. Motivation now subtly surrounds you. Muzak Science is rearranged and re-recorded music programmed into psychological lifts. For better attitudes resulting in better productivity, call Muzak. More than music, an environment.
Every girl should have a dream. Every boy should make believe. And the streets just ain't no place for growing up. Give a kid a place, a dream, a hand, a face. You give a world when you give a kid a place.
The scores were indeed correct as verified, so congratulations go to Orangeville District, to Andrea, Don, Mike, and Mark. Good work. And many thanks to Bramalea Secondary for coming out. Dave, Tom, Scott, and Jim. You played a good game. Please join us on Saturday, December 1st, when Brampton Centennial Secondary School will meet Huntsville High School as we search once again for a final winner here on Reach for the Top. For Jerry Allaby, I'm Gail Keary, wishing you good night.
Spend New Year's Day with Huey Lewis. Halloween.